Hello and welcome. My name is Stuart Rowell, also known as Silvertooth. You are tuned to the Liverpool Connection Music and Football Podcast. It's good, so keep it locked.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. This is my music and football episode where I bring on a musician, DJ, producer to talk about the two loves, which are music and football. By the way, I'm Daz, if you're just tuning in for the first time. Today I've got an amazing guest. He's been in the music business for a very, very long time. He's not only a producer, he's a composer, he's a sound engineer, a mixing engineer, mastering, does it all, which I think's fantastic. You know, I like to dabble a little bit, but you know, when this man has just done it all and he's done it very, very well. His name is James Hockley. James is an Arsenal supporter. You know, as everyone knows, I'm a Liverpool supporter. I'm very happy with how this season has played out. Would I have liked more trophies? Of course I would. But the league title is the bread and butter, so I'm very happy with that. I want to get back, James, like, you know, as we were just talking off camera, you know, as we're kids, you kind of don't put your whole loyalty into a football team until a little bit later on in life. And for you, you know, I'm sure some Arsenal supporters, you know, once you tell them like, yes, I was a red for a week or two, they'll be like, no, oh no. But, you know, as your kids, like I wore a Spurs shirt for probably a week because me dad used to work in the Middle East and he was on a plane with the Spurs squad. So he brought me back a Spurs shirt and I wore it for a week and I got like pretty much terrorized by my mates. Like I was a Liverpool supporter, but I just wore it, you know, to kind of appease me dad and yeah, it went back in the closet for, you know, 30, 40 years. It's collecting dust, but it's got all the signatures and everything.
Wow.
But for you, like, you know, when did you really start supporting Arsenal?
Well, it was as I was just explaining before. So my family come from Highbury. So my it's my mum's side of the family come from Highbury, and they used to have baker shops, and the players used to go in and get their bread, and they used to see the players when the players used to like live in the houses around Highbury. That was that kind of that era, and so I've always had Arsenal in the family. But there was, as I was just saying, a couple of weeks. I had a best friend of mine when I was at junior school, and he was a Liverpool fan, and he had a Liverpool kit, and we used to play on a football on a bit of grass next to his house. And I wore this Liverpool kit, and I was like, right, I'm going to support Liverpool now. That's it. I'm going to support Liverpool. And I remember going home and saying to my dad, I'm going to support Liverpool now. And he was like, okay, well, we'll see, we'll see. And then just a matter of weeks later, um, we went to Highbury, and I can still remember walking up the steps and just seeing this. I was only must have been I don't know 6 or 7, something like that. Walking up the steps and looking at the pitch and having to turn my head to see either end of the pitch and thinking, "Wow, this is absolutely amazing!" And that was it. I was an Arsenal fan, which my mum wasn't very happy about. By the time we got home, we were staying with some friends of ours in Romford area, and while we'd been at the football, she'd been down to Romford Market and bought me a Liverpool pillowcase. And then I came back and said, "No, I support Arsenal now. I don't support Liverpool anymore. I support Arsenal again now." So yeah, I did have a Liverpool pillowcase for a little while longer, but funny enough, my one of my lads is he's really into Arsenal, and so he actually now has my old duvet cover. My mum found my old duvet cover and pillowcase, and so now he has that on his bed now, and it's very proudly sleeps underneath an Arsenal duvet, which is fantastic. So yeah, that's how I remember being. That was it. Arsenal. That was Arsenal. Then from that moment on, it was Arsenal. When I was everything was football when I was that age as well. I was really into football.
I
So
mean,
that's
the
what
big,
I started.
I think that, you know, when you can't, because I went when I was 6, and I just think like I was more of a people watcher for the first couple of years. I wasn't watching what was really going on the pitch. It was more, what's around me because I was in the cop, and obviously it was
Yeah.
standing then.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it was more when I was able to go by myself with my mates. I started
Yeah.
to really connect with the football. And I've been to Highbury quite a few times, and it was at such an iconic stadium just
Oh,
because
incredible place.
you feel like you're on the pitch with the
Yeah.
play, and I just think a lot more of these stadiums are pushing the fans further and further back, like you go the West Ham as well.
Yeah.
You just feel so disconnected. That's
Yeah.
why, I love Anfield. I love, what FSG have done, like to refurbish and add on to it because
Yeah.
quite a number of people are like, let's just knock Anfield down. That's sacrilegious for me. How, I
Yeah.
mean, your thoughts on, like, obviously you want more people, more fans in the stadium, but Highbury has so much history.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a bit of a sad time when they left Highbury, but then I mean Emirates is not far away from it. You can see it from you standing on the like the where you walk up the stairs and stuff, and you're standing on the, I don't know, you call it the concourse or something like that. I don't know what you call it, behind the stands there, and you can see it. You can see it there. And we actually went a couple of years ago. We went for a friendly game in the summer, and I took both our boys, and my dad came along as well. And afterwards, to save us all having to stand, because they were only quite small then, save us having to stand in the queues for the tube stations afterwards, I said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Why don't we walk round and we can see Highbury? Because Highbury is still there. It's just it's all flats now. And so we walked round and we went round to the famous entrance with the steps, and the marble hall and all that kind of stuff there. Went round and showed them all that. And then we were looking through, there's a gate that you can look through into where the pitch was, and it's a big garden now. You've probably seen it from some of the aerial photographs of it. It's a big garden, and it just so happens that we were very fortunate in that there was somebody who lived there, who was just walking up to the gate with his security code, and he put it in, and he pushed the gate open, and he turned to us and said, "I'll leave it open a little bit if you want." And then he walked through, and I was like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah. Just if anybody asks, it wasn't me that let you in, all right?" And so we went in. So we actually went in and walked around this garden, which was the pitch. And you see now how small it was. It was really small compared to like the Emirates Stadium. Even I imagine I've never been on the pitch of the Emirates Stadium, but the Highbury seemed so small. The stand seemed to be right on top of it. It was really kind of amazing, really, how close the crowd must have been to the pitch. So you're right. So it's a very um you feel like you were on the pitch with them. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now you're not. Although there's, to be fair, there's not. I've never sat in a bad seat at the Emirates Stadium. There's never been anywhere that's blocked view, or you can see all the action from pretty much any seat I've sat in, which is pretty good. But yeah, Highbury was pretty amazing to be on the actually where the pitch was pretty special. I kind of quite enjoyed that. Not sure our boys quite got the same feeling because they don't remember it being a football stadium, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty amazing place, and it is
Yeah.
lovely that they've kept it, and you can still see the where the stands came down. You can still see they're still all there. It's all there. It's just it's flats now, not a stadium anymore, which is kind of quite nice that you still walk out the tube station and there it is.
Mhm.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like for us. I mean, not the stadium, but Melwood, the training facility.
Yeah,
For so many years, and then it was sold, and it looked like it was gonna, you know, block of flats again. And then I think
yeah,
Fowler came in and a few others, and now the ladies were there for a while. So it's just nice to see an iconic training ground still there. But do you remember your first match?
yeah. Well, I remember it from walking up the steps there. I
Mhm.
remember that. I can't remember who it was. I have a feeling it was somebody like West Brom or Wimbledon. My dad remembers who it was because I remember getting the program, and it had the centre spread was a picture of Paul Davis, and I had that on my wall in my bedroom for years. It was from my first program that I got. I've still got a lot of the old programs. I can't remember. It was, I want to say Wimbledon, but that may be because I remember going on New Year's Day one year. In fact, I found footage of it on YouTube the other day. I was showing it to our son, who's into Arsenal, because I remember we went down and we went in. It's when you used to be able to just walk up to a game, pay on the turnstiles, and walk in. And we went in and we stood on the North Bank. Only time I ever stood on the North Bank because that's all the tickets they had left, I think. We stood on the North Bank, and I remember Charlie Nicholas. That dates it a little bit for anybody who remembers Charlie Nicholas playing. Scored a header, and it happened right in front of me, and I can still remember that. And I found the footage of it on YouTube. That game, and that was against Wimbledon. So I want to say Wimbledon. I don't think it was Wimbledon. I think it was more likely to be West Brom or something like that. I think. I don't remember. I remember we won, but I don't remember much about the game. I just remember being absolutely amazed that I was in this football stadium because I was only, as I was saying, only little, and it was just such an amazing experience. But yeah, I remember that it was around probably about the same time. May even have been the same season. I can't remember what season that was. I remember being very excited at a game as well because Pat Jennings was going to play, and he was my hero at the time because I was a goalkeeper when I was at school. And I actually have a signed photograph of Pat Jennings just behind that keyboard over there that got signed when I was at college in Islington. He opened our local Asda pharmacy for all. I don't know why that was Pat Jennings opening this thing. Wow, I'm going to meet Pat Jennings. And I just remember going up to him and sort of looking up at him because he's so huge, and he shook my hand with these huge hands, and then signed this picture, which was quite cool. But yeah, that I remember seeing him play once. That was like right at the end of his career, and it was either him or it was John Lukic, which would have been in goal. So I have little bits of memories of the games.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think like back in our day, you're probably around my age, I would think, that football players would actually do stuff like that, open pharmacies, open
That was in Southgate, a pharmacy in Southgate, and he's opening it. Yeah,
yeah,
that was a long time. That was probably 10 years after he finished playing, I would think. Possibly even more than that. It would have been 90s, late 90s, maybe something like that. Mid 90s, late 90s.
Yeah, you don't see too many footballers doing that these days. I remember a Liverpool player opening a car park. With the like, it was just a bit daft, but it was just another time we could get to see one of our heroes. Cut in the rope, and you just like, you didn't even think about the car park. You just thought, Liverpool player, I'm down there, so yeah, times have changed. But I mean, for Arsenal, you've done so well. I mean, obviously under Arsene Wenger, you won a lot. The untouchables, as they say, invincibles.
Invincibles, yeah.
And now you've got us, the unbearables. But I mean, football is kind of a bit like fashion. Teams go in and out. United haven't won barely, they haven't won the league in 13, 14 years, but they'll still go on about it. When Arsene Wenger left, that's obviously a massive hole to fill. Kind of like when Klopp left. I had no idea Slot would come in and do what he's done.
I think you've done slightly better than we did with Emery. Emery didn't work at all, did he? So
yeah, but he's done so well. He's done so well with Villa. I just think sometimes, it's just not working. But what's your thoughts on do you think like Wenger stayed too long?
I think he probably did. And I think he probably tried he didn't want to change the way he did things. So he tried to do that for too long without what he didn't want to change. So he just kept going, kept going. It was also at the time where they just built the Emirates Stadium and they were paying back their loan that they got from whoever it was, Emirates was it? I think something like that. Whoever it was, they got the loan from, and so they didn't have a lot of money to spend on players, and so they weren't able to buy some of the bigger players. Also, I think they weren't attracting some of the bigger players. Oh, we just had a power cut. Well, my power's just gone off. Well, the power's just gone off.
That's weird. I still see lights though.
You still see? Can you still see me?
Yeah.
On my battery, my laptop battery.
Yeah, still see you.
All my equipment's just gone bonkers. Sorry. How weird. I've just had Pro Tools pop up in front of you. There you go. Sorry, I still had that open. We just quit that. There we go. Sorry, we're still recording, are we? Sorry about that.
Yeah, all good. All good.
What was I talking about? I was talking about Arsenal. Arsene Wenger. So they weren't attracting the bigger players. Bigger players didn't want to come to them, I think, because they weren't doing so well. And it was just a bit of a weird time because we'd had such a massive success with Henry and Vieira and all of that team, all the kind of the Invincibles team, but they were just about kind of, I don't know, kind of running out of all those players were getting to the age where they were leaving or retiring or whatever, and it was just a bit of a weird time. I think that's what it was. It was just they didn't have much money, but he was still trying to make them believe that they could do it, but they just weren't kind of doing it. It was a kind of a bit of a weird period, really, I think. So I think he kind of did stay a bit too long.
Well, for me, it's one of those, like you've got. I think you had the older supporters that loved Wenger and wanted him to keep going. I mean, especially somebody as iconic as Wenger. But then you've got the younger people going, "I've seen enough. Like it's time for him to move on." I mean, for me, watching Arsenal, especially in the like 80s and 90s, like 2000s. I mean, Bergkamp to me was one of the best midfielders I'd ever seen in my entire life.
Incredible.
That's coming from a Liverpool supporter that's had some amazing midfielders, but Bergkamp could do stuff with the football that I'd never seen before. We had Barnsley, he was more a winger, but Bergkamp just it was effortless. Like watching him play football, it was just effortless. But I think you had the balance. You had the Henrys and the Bergkamps, but you also had the tough lads as well. I think that's what made your team. And I think Liverpool kind of the same way. You've got some stellar players, but then you've got the hard men that you need to do the dirty business. And I just feel like going to modern day, I think you still need that player in your team that's going to do the dirt. I like Rice. I thought you've done well to get him, but you still need a hard man that's going to, kind of get stuck in like a James Milner did for us. He'd come on and he'd pick on a player, and that player would not play well for the rest of the match. I just think you're missing that ingredients in this team. And I've had a few Arsenal supporters on, and I still don't think you've got a world-class keeper. I just don't. That's my opinion. You're obviously missing a striker, which is huge. Havertz is not that striker. I don't care what Arteta is trying to do with him. He's not a striker. Sterling, I think, was a terrible acquisition. He's just, I mean, he's
I
on
don't
loan
think
though,
he's
isn't
quite
he?
worked out, has he?
Yeah, he's just not good enough anymore. So, I mean, your thoughts on like, okay, in modern day football, winning trophies is what it's all about. And Arteta has only won one,
Mm-hmm.
and it's already going on how many years now? Like he's been with Arsenal 5.
Something like that. It's more than I think. It
Yeah,
was.
I think
Yeah.
next season will be, I think, his sixth season. So when do you start? Like, I, I know football is a business, and like, if Slot didn't win the league and doesn't win a couple of trophies in the next couple of years, then the same question is going to be asked. I I hate the way modern football is. They don't really give managers time. Um, Arteta obviously comes from the Pep Guardiola kind of team.
Mhm.
Like worked at Man City with him and followed him. What's your thoughts on if he goes another season without a trophy, and then next season without a trophy? When does the train stop for him?
Well, the only thing you can do is to wait and see. I don't think you can say. I mean, I think we've been in with a pretty good chance for the last couple of seasons. It just hasn't. Something's happened this season. We've been very unlucky with the injuries. I'm not going to blame injuries or anything like that for it, but we've been very unlucky. We did, we had probably first half of the season or a good chunk of the season we didn't have Odegaard, who was he's a massive part of the team. Um, he didn't. We no, we lost Jesus, we lost Havertz, we've lost Gabriel now. We've no all these. We've had quite a lot of players, and I think it was a mistake not to sign a striker in January. Absolutely was a mistake to do that. I don't know why they didn't. You can't tell me there wasn't somebody there that did it. I mean, even I don't know what happened with Rashford, but I mean, I think he would have been fantastic. And Aston Villa picked him up on loan from Manchester United, and he look at him now, he's flying, and he could have been doing that for Arsenal. It would have been fantastic. Whether he didn't want to, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know if they approached him. I don't know. But I think Arteta was the man I wanted. I thought would be a good manager for Arsenal before he came to Arsenal. I thought we needed him to come there. Um, I don't know. I don't kind of think like that about it. I just kind of think more about what's happening right now and what's happening this season. I can't really, you can't really tell too much what's going to happen in the next season. We could win the Champions League this year. Then it all changes, right? We're still in it. All we got to do is to, well, mind you, by the time this comes out, we may not be in it, but we could still win the Champions League. We could next season we could absolutely rinse it. We could do the treble next year. So who knows what's going to happen? Then it's a completely different world, and everybody's talking about Arteta like he's the best thing ever. Um, so yeah, I think it's good that they do. Arsenal seem to give managers a bit of time. They don't get pressurized for it. I mean, there are some teams that if Guardiola was the manager of some teams, he would have been out by now. But it's only because he's Manchester City and he's Guardiola that he hasn't gone. But look at his season he's had this season. He hasn't had a very good season at all.
Mhm.
Well, I say he hasn't. His team hasn't had a very good season. Um, and all right, this starting to pick up a bit now. But then again, you see, it's some of the signings that he's made in January that are helping him build it up again. They've lost Haaland, but it's okay because they've got what's his name?
Mhm.
What's the new kid they've got? I can't think of his name.
They got him from, was it Frankfurt?
Something
Uh,
like
the
that. He's
Egyptian lad.
he's been fantastic, isn't he, for him?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, that's the thing, they're a checkbook club. They can go out and
yeah,
spend 200 million. Um, but I mean, what's your thoughts on this, James? Because I just laugh at it's kind of disrespectful, I think, especially to Liverpool. Like, we've been the most consistent team in the league, but then you got people trying to downplay it. Every team has injuries. Every team has things go for them and against them. But there's always, people like to come out and try and put the asterisk against us. It was same with, when we won during COVID times, which actually Man City the season after played most of the season without fans. So that's where the asterisk should be, not with ours, because, we were, 25 points clear mid-March. So that load of bollocks is an absolute load of bollocks. But I just find it like it's just. I mean, if another team did what we did this season, I'd congratulate them and be apart from Man United. But I'd congratulate them. That's your bread and butter as the league, because you've been consistent. I mean, we've only, there's still a couple of games to go, but we've only lost 3 in the league.
Yeah. I think Liverpool have been fantastic this season. I think they've been amazing, especially coming in new manager, and they've been possibly better than they were last season. That's the thing about it. People always talk about the manager. Well, I mean, they've got, when Arne Slot came in, they had they had no idea how it was going to work. It's like any new manager. He's come in and obviously picked up straight away from where Klopp left off, and I mean, he couldn't wish for a better season, right? So I mean, I think it's great. I think they haven't. I think it's brilliant that they've won. I think it's great that they've been able to do that. I don't think it's anything to do with, it's this luck and you played this and this happened and all that. Nothing to do with that at all. It's about being able to. It comes down to like any game. It's about being able to win when you're not playing well. That's what it's all about. If you can not play well for a whole game and win it, that's when you're going to win the league. There's no other thing about it really. That's how it happens. And okay, people can say, "Oh, you didn't play well because he had injuries or whatever." It doesn't matter. If you don't play well, but you can still get the win, that's how you win. That's how you win it. So, and Liverpool have been better at that than anybody else this season. Not that they've played badly at all this season, but if they have ever had a bad game, they've managed just to nick that little goal, and that's it. They've won it.
Well, it's a sign of champions. This isn't FIFA where a lot of online people think you should be winning football matches 4 or 5-0 every single week, or you're crap. It's just you grind a result out no matter what it is. I'll take 38 1-0s every day of the week. It doesn't bother me, and I'm well happy just because I had no idea about Slot. I mean, as soon as I knew he was coming in, I tried to find everything about him, and the Dutch league, obviously, no disrespect to them, but it's like, 4th tier down in European leagues, or 5th tier. So, going from somebody like Klopp, who was very charismatic and very Shankly-esque, because he really got the city of Liverpool, not just the football, but the people. And, Slot, there's a comparison now, as there always is. Slot is the Bob Paisley. And I'm like, if Slot can get half of what Paisley got, then I'll be well happy. But, people are also talking about, well, Slot inherited Klopp's squad. Well, yeah, but that squad that he inherited was 3rd last season, and ran out of steam. So he's just he's tweaked it a little bit. We're not as heavy metal football as Klopp was. I definitely now can tell, like, if Klopp was playing some of those games this season, I think we would have lost. Just because we would run out of steam. And I think Slot's done really well. I've read, he had one of the best non-injury records in the Dutch league, and I think that's helping us. Not that we haven't had injuries, because we have to, Trent to Allison to Jota, to quite a few players, but there's a lot less muscle injuries. But yeah,
Yeah.
I just think this team was ready to go again, and obviously, Trent's leaving us, and there's a whole. It's divided. He's a rat, for going for free. And then you've got, good luck. So there's no kind of middle ground. It's just, he's a lad that played for us for, since he was 6 for 20 years. He's won it all. I wish we would have got money for him. I really do, because you're letting a generational talent go for free. But, if he didn't want to sign a contract, you can't really force him. And
No.
I think, footballers and their agents have this hangover over football clubs now. They dictate what's going to happen. And I'm not a massive Real Madrid fan, because I think they do it awful. I think they tap up a player a couple of years before. We've seen it with Mbappe. Now it's with Trent. And they're looking at some other players, next season as well, to get your contract down. What's your thoughts on that? Because it does my head in. I think it's wrong. But, we let it happen. Madrid get they're going back to the Galactico era again, just picking players that they want and making them, basically do what they want, and then they get the big sign-on bonus.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know. It's just it seems to be that's the way they do it. I think there needs to be more laws about that, all the money and the contracts and all that kind of stuff. Don't think there's enough about it. I think there's too much money in it. I think too many people make too much money out of it, and that's why it's allowed to happen, because they're all in it. If you see what I mean. And it's a bit crooked almost. It's a bit yeah, it's too well, it's just, yeah, it's too, it's the sort of thing where everybody gets annoyed about it, but nothing can stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Because unless somebody comes in with enough balls to do it, to stop it, you just won't stop it. There's too much money involved in football now, and that's what it's all about at that level. It's all about the money and the agents and the who gets this fee and who gets that fee, and we'll pay you this much and we'll do this much. And obviously they don't get, the backhanders and stuff that everyone was getting caught for, a load of years ago. But there'll be other ways that it's going on. If you see what I mean, it's all a bit shady. I think all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And then, you've got, it's not just playing football and a contract, it's image rights. Shirt sales is in the contracts now. It's just gotten so overblown, and footballers are looked at like rock stars now, and and fashionistas. They're doing all these photo shoots now. It's just getting a bit nuts. I'm just, I'm an old schooler. I like the hard tackles that don't even exist. You can barely touch a player now. And it's a free kick, or you see somebody roll over and like they've been shot, and you're just like, get up. I miss the sponge and bucket. The
magic sponge.
Yeah, the magic sponge with that water. Whatever was in that water helped. So I still try and ask, some older people, like, do they know what was in that water? Because you'd have a broken leg, you bring out that magic sponge, no broken leg anymore. They'd finished the match. So it's
and players like Steve Foster playing with blood, bandages around his head and blood running down his face and all that kind of stuff. He wouldn't be allowed to do that anymore. They all they got to do now is to go down clutching their head.
Oh yeah.
And we have to stop the game because it's a head injury, and then 20 seconds later they're up and running around again. And it's like, well, it wasn't a head injury, was it? He was just lying on the floor holding his head. That's all.
Well, that needs to be I think that's not only like the greed and money, but that has to be stopped as well. There's these faking injuries
Yeah.
as they say, it's a 90-minute game and only about 40 minutes actually gets played on the pitch because
Yeah.
everyone goes down. There's so much stop and start, and it kind of
Yeah.
ruins the game. And until like the FA, until FIFA, UEFA do something about it, it's just going to keep happening and it's just going to get worse. And the punters that pay so much money to go to these games aren't getting, entertainment anymore. It takes them too long. It just seems like the Premier League is the only league that it takes so damn long to do VAR and then
Yeah.
get it wrong
Yeah.
at the
They
end of
get
the
me
day.
tired of VAR. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother podcast. That's a whole nother
Absolutely. I
like,
mean, it almost becomes like it would become like American football, where you have the no until it stops every time the other team get the ball, or the other time they drop the ball, it has to stop and then it starts again from the next line, and just put the lines down the pitch. And if the other players get the ball off them or they fall over at that point, then they have to start another kick off from that point. Or something. It just gets ridiculous, doesn't it?
yeah, it's just too much. And then I hear about like if a goalkeeper holds the ball too long now, it's going to be a corner. Like what? Like come on,
Do you remember the two-step rule? Remember that? If they took more
yeah,
than two steps holding the ball, it would be a free kick.
yeah. It's just getting a bit daft.
Three steps. I can't remember. It was two or three steps, wasn't it? But
Yeah, it's just getting all a bit silly and too like just play football. That's all we want.
yeah,
Um, I do want to talk music now.
yeah, cool, man. Yeah, well, yeah, cool.
I mean, obviously, like you have, how many synths do you own, by the way?
One, two, three, four. There's more out of shot as well. You see, five, six, seven, and then eight, nine. In the rack, I've got another 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and one under here, 19. 19, maybe one more somewhere. Oh, there's a couple over there in the corner that need fixing. 20, 21, 22, 22 synthesizers.
Wow. Yeah, that's about like one rack of my trainers. Uh,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
I've got a few pairs of trainers. I haven't got as many as that many pairs of trainers.
yeah. I've been collecting since I was 16, all Adidas. It's
Yeah,
just
nice.
one of those. I don't wear. I'm a collector, so I've got all the tags and stuff on. But music wise, your root in music, like in your house when you're little, did the music that your mum and dad listened to, did that influence you at all?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we used to go like car journeys, and we'd have albums, music. They would play albums, and usually it would be um, the Electric Light Orchestra. It would be the Eagles. Um, Occasionally, I remember doing one journey to see my auntie in Germany, and we drove. And on the way back, we had an ABBA cassette. So there was ABBA. I don't remember ABBA being played too much. I think my dad was a massive fan of ABBA, to be honest with you. It was mostly ELO and the Eagles is what I remember having listening to. And then I started discovering my own types of music, and it was mostly electronic music. The first album I ever bought was a band called Break Machine, who had a couple of songs. There was a song called Street Dance and a couple of others off the album. I still love that album. It's fantastic. And I mean, there's articles online about how they made it all and only used like two synthesizers and a drum machine. So it was absolutely incredible. Um, then I think the next record I bought was actually the England World Cup song, which is not quite so good. The 82 World Cup song. This time more than any other time, it was called. I still have that on a 7-inch single. But I started discovering things like the Pet Shop Boys and Depeche Mode and things like that, and it was starting to get more and more electronic. Um, But definitely, I mean, some of the later ELO albums are quite electronic. They got a lot of synthesizers. The keyboard player, and there was a guy called Richard Tandy, and he had a lot of they did a lot of synthesizers and vocoders and stuff like that. And that's what I think attracted me to that. And the strings, I love a good string line. Nowadays, you can do all that in plugins and stuff on your computer, but back then it had to be orchestras and stuff, obviously, that were doing it. But yeah, it was all that kind of stuff. Genesis as well. Some early Genesis albums. My dad used to play those a lot. All the synthesizers and the Tony Banks doing the synths on that and things like that. Fantastic stuff.
Well, a lot of like, prog rock had the
Mm.
synthesizers,
Yeah.
and, my dad was a rocker, but he also listened to, Jeff Lynne, ELO, and, that's kind of where my influence came as well. I just love the different sounds. And for you, did you learn piano as a kid, or did you?
So I didn't learn piano. I actually learned the trumpet. I remember watching Young Musician of the Year one Sunday, I think, with my parents, and there was a guy who won it, played the trumpet, and I happened to say to my mum, I'd quite like to play the trumpet. And then about 2 days later, she appeared home with a trumpet, and she said, "I've got your trumpet lessons at school, and here's the trumpet that they've given us for you to play." And so I started to learn the trumpet. This is when I was at junior school. I was only little. Started playing the trumpet, and so I started to learn to play music, learn to read music, trumpet music, stuff like that. And I started to learn to do that. And then when I went to secondary school, the teacher that was there, I didn't get on so well with him, the trumpet teacher. I didn't, so I stopped doing that. Um, and then at Christmas time, we had to do a carol concert, and every class had to do a different carol in the assembly. And my class decided we would do Band Aid. Do they know it's Christmas? That I don't know how we got away with that as a carol. I've got no idea, but that's what we chose to do. And so there was another kid in my class, a guy called David Creasy, and he worked out how to play "Do They Know It's Christmas" on the keyboard, and said, I need somebody else who can read music to play a second part. And I said, well, I can read music. And so I started to play this part on the keyboard. And that was it. I was hooked. I was hooked on keyboards and synthesizers and things. And we ended up having like a little school band. We used to play the school assembly, stuff like that. But it was no MIDI. It was all done with like just like home keyboards and stuff. All the keyboards I had at school, we used to play those, but we used to plug them into PA systems and mixers and all sorts of stuff. And then my music teacher picked up, I think, that I was getting more and more. I was always into computers, getting more and more interested in synthesizers. And one year, he said to me, I remember him saying to me, "Here's the book of all the stuff I can buy for this year, and I've got this much budget. What should I get?" And they had a DX100, Yamaha DX100 in there, and I said one of those, and so he did. He bought it, and that's how I learned to program synthesizers, was because he bought that. Um, and I used to spend all my lunch times up there programming the synthesizer, and making sounds. I've actually still got the sounds that I made at that time at school, because a few years later I went back to. I was doing a project, a college project, and I went back to my old school to teach them how to make electronic music, basically, as part of my college course. And I said to him, by that time I had a DX21, which is one of the ones I've got behind the computer here, um, which is compatible with the 100. And I said, is there any chance I could borrow the 100 and dump all my sounds into it? Because they were still, nobody used it pretty much since I left school. So I've actually got all the sounds in that synthesizer that I made when I was at school. Still got them today, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's how I did it. He was brilliant, and he supported me. He let me do all my GCSE in electronic music, and I wrote all the music using BBC Micro, which I still have there. System I have just there. The hybrid music system I had on that, and I did the whole thing in that, and performed a concert of it all, and he was amazing, Mr. Gibbs, David Gibbs, his name is, and he's I still speak to him occasionally on Facebook, but not very often anymore. Um, yeah, he's retired now, obviously, but it's just fantastic. Without him, I don't think I would have got into it at all. And that then went on, and I got different computers. I got an Amiga and started doing music on that and getting into MIDI, buying different synthesizers. Then I got the Atari, which I've still got there, Atari there, um, and started doing that. And that's when I went to college in London and started properly doing audio engineering and trying to do that in London in a private. There was no university that did that when I wanted to do it, so I went to a private college in Islington called Alchemia, and we went there and we had an SSL desk studio and all the gear you could wish for. And that's how I got into working in studios, was because we used to do 12-hour sessions overnight in that studio. We were allowed to do one session a week. It was our session. We could do whatever we liked. And a lot of us used to find bands that wanted to come into the studio and give them free sessions, but we were recording it as practice. And one of the bands that came in that night, two of the guys in the band were building a studio in Shoreditch. And they said, "Oh, you should come down and see our studio." And so I went down to see it, and they said, "Do you want to be our engineer? Because we haven't got an engineer." And that's how I got into working in studios. Was I said, "Yeah, that'd be fantastic. It'd be amazing." And that's how I got started doing that, and worked with different people and bands and stuff in a little basement in Shoreditch for a few years, which was pretty cool.
Are you a perfectionist?
I think I probably am now. I don't know if I was then. I was still more worried about not doing stuff properly back then. Because it was all on tape. That was still on. That was ADAT tape, but so it was digital tape, but it was on tape. Um, and so if you messed up, if you pressed record at the wrong time and had the wrong tracks armed, it would delete stuff and it wouldn't be there anymore. There was no undo button and no, oh, can we just, no, it would lose, you would just lose stuff. So I was always very aware of that, to making sure in my head that I was working properly. So I don't think back then I was more worried about the equipment. Working the equipment properly and knowing the equipment properly than I was about what was happening with the music. So I guess from that point of view, I was a perfectionist, I suppose. Now, if I'm very much, yeah, if I'm writing stuff or if I'm working stuff, because you can do obviously so much more now because you've got everything's inside the computer. Yeah, I do like to make sure everything sounds great before I send it to anybody. Or I think it sounds great anyway. And then if people change things and send it back to me, I quite often think it doesn't sound as good as when I send it to you, though, does it? It's really weird. It's a really weird thing to think, but it's, yeah, you have to sort of be a perfectionist, but then learn to work with people as well, to not come across as, oh no, well, my way's better, sort of thing. Is it not always better? It's just sometimes it's you may think that, but then you just go, actually, you know what? That sounds great. It does sound great. It's just, you just have a couple of hours off it or a couple of days off it, and go back and listen again, and you go, yeah, that sounds amazing. So I am a
Well,
perfectionist, not so much,
I,
but
I think you have, like, certain people, like, who liked, when they start a track from A to Z, they do basically everything, the production, the mastering. Are you like that? Because, you've got certain people like, Goldie for one. He has these ideas in his head, and, but has an engineer that brings out
mm,
all those ideas. Now, for you, I think this is, my opinion as well. I would just like to do kind of everything, because, as an artist, that's your baby. Are you the same? But obviously, you just said, sometimes you have to, kind of compromise on things. But in a perfect world, would you do it from A to Z yourself?
yeah, It depends, I think, on what it is you're doing. I've done stuff where I've written um back in like sort of in 2020 when everybody was at home. I got involved in writing quite a lot of library albums for and some of them I produced, well, engineered. I wrote them, engineered them, programmed them, mixed them, everything, mastered them to the lot. And some I just wrote them and recorded them. And then it went off to a mix engineer. And initially I was like, really? Can we not just do it ourselves? And then actually when you get it back and you listen to it, you think, you know what, that was actually quite a good thing to get a set of fresh ears on that. Um, and it was so there is sometimes it's quite nice just to take a step back, say, right, that's how I think it should sound, and then you send it all to I mean, you send it on Pro Tools sessions, so you send them stems, so everything, all the processing that you wanted to have on it is done, and it sounds the way you want it to sound when you send it to them, and then they put it through their desk or their valve gear or whatever it is that they do when they're mixing it, and it comes back, and it's kind of got a different sort of sheen to it, which I think is quite nice because it's had another set of ears on it. And occasionally you get things like where, well, that guitar line should be louder than that, and they haven't heard it that way. So you just go back to that. Actually, that needs to be louder because that's the main part in that section of the song, and they just tweak it or whatever, and it's so that's quite good. But it is quite nice to have somebody with a separate set of ears on it. Mastering, I've never. I mean, I have my master output settings. If I'm in Logic, for instance, I tend to write in Logic. I'll always have my master output settings on it, and all I do is I just adjust the gain of how much is coming into those plugins. Um, I try not to get too worried about mastering when you're writing a track or doing any music because it's more important to get the music right than it is to worry about what it's going to sound like when you get to the end of it. So I always try and almost like kind of wear different hats, if you like. So if I'm writing the music, I'm writing the music. I'm not worrying about what the sounds are going to be or how they're going to be or whatever it is. I'm not worrying about the sound of it so much. I'm writing the actual music, and then I'll go to the programming part of it, the engineering part of it, if you like, where I then tweak the sounds and find the right sounds once all the writing bits are done, and then I might go back to the writing hat and go, okay, so now I've got that sound like this. I need to add this sound and this sound and this sound, and just to make it do this. And then you put your kind of producer sort of hat on, and then you arrange the track and get it all sounding right and dropping in and out and bits in and out the right places. Um, and then you sort of mix it. And quite often I will do it where I actually pull the faders down. We used to call it elbows down. We used to just get the faders on the mixing desk and just pull them all down and then push them back up again because everything just gets louder and louder and louder when you're working on it. So that I'll have different stages of tracks where I'm okay. I'm writing this track, I'm sorting the sounds out on this track, and this one's got to arrangement stage, and this one's got to mixing stage. So I will think of it as a very old school kind of thing. A lot of people I know don't do that. They just do the whole thing all at once, all mixed in together. Um, but yeah, it's I tend to find for mixing, it's quite nice to get somebody else's ears on it. And I've been doing some at Dolby Atmos mixing as well because this room is actually a Dolby. I've had the guys from Dolby came out, very fortunately, came out and set it up for me. So I've been doing some Atmos mixing as well, which has been really interesting to do because you can do so many things and make things fly around you and appear from different parts of the room. It's fantastic. But yeah.
Well, how do you stay creative? Like a lot of songwriters like have the musical block. How do you stay like motivated and creative?
Um, I think you just have to know that if nothing's working, just leave it. Just go off and do something else. Don't try and push anything. Try and create anything if there's nothing coming to create. Go and do something else. Um, Sometimes I'll just go for a walk or something, or there's a very useful little um, plugin I've discovered, which is great for coming up with ideas. I don't know if you've ever come across it. It's called Life. I don't remember who it's made by now, but it's an app on your phone and it's a plugin you can put into your software on your computer, and it allows you to record sounds, real life. It doesn't any sound, record any sound, and then it uses the internet to sync through a cloud, obviously, because everything syncs through clouds now, right? So it goes through the cloud, and it syncs back to your computer, and it just creates rhythms from these sounds you record, and you can just get the most amazing things, and then you start hearing these rhythms that are created from, I don't know, I'm walking down by the canal or something, and I don't know, there's a bird sound or something like that, and I record it, and in the background it catches, I don't know, a car going over the bridge above the canal or something like that, and then all of a sudden you get this back, and it's created this rhythm from these sounds. May have a bit of wind noise or something on this, and it just creates these rhythms from it. And then I find that quite inspiring to do that. All of a sudden you get this rhythm, and you go, oh, I can hear this sound on that, and then you start playing. Um, Sometimes I'll use that. Sometimes I'll use just a bit of film. You just open YouTube up or something like that and turn the sound off, and then you just have that playing, and you just have a sound on your keyboard, and you just start playing to the picture, and something will come out of that. It's just different ways, different things, um, just to trigger different things in your head, and try and think of, or try and not think of ways to do it. If you know what I mean? Does that make any sense? I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense to me. I just think like a lot of producers, not a lot, but like early, just learning, try and force something. They'll just keep going back to the same like song, and you can't force it if it's not happening, it's not happening.
No.
And for you, do you still have like a music library from songs that you were working on years ago? Have you ever gone back to anything like that and pulled it out and said, I'm ready to go again on projects?
It depends on if I've worked with somebody on it. Because if it's so if I was like some of the chicane stuff, I still listen to that, and I still think, "Oh, I'm not happy with how that sounded there. But I can't change it because it's not my track. Do you know what I mean? It's a track I'd worked on, but I didn't. It's not my track to go back and say, I think, can we just redo this bit here or something? Whatever. I mean, it still sounds great. It's just there's just little things that you hear and you're not happy with it. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know whether it was just I didn't hear it at the time, or whether it's um yeah, it's just little bits, little things like that sometimes. Or on some of the same thing happens all the time. It's so if I hear some of the tracks uh or remixes that I've done, I'll hear things on there and think, oh, that should have kicked better in there, but it's not my track, so I can't. I've still got all the parts for them all, but I can't go back in and redo it and send it to them and say I've redone this bit. It's not, they're not going to be interested, in that sort of thing. I do have tracks though that are like remixes and things that were never used, and for that sometimes I'll go back to things and I'll lift out sections and use it for something else,
Mhm.
um, which is something I've learned to do, or push it with what we call mashing it together with something else. There's a trick I learned from working with somebody where sometimes they'll take two tracks that they've done that haven't been used for anything, and they just what they call mash them together. So you stick them in some DJ software, put them in Serato, or you put them in Record Box or whatever, and you just put them together. And all of a sudden, all this stuff happens, and you think, "Wow, that sounds amazing!" So that's this bit of this track and this bit of this track. It's working. Okay, let's take those bits and put them together, and it starts a whole nother track. So that's another thing that I've kind of learned to do with stuff. I've never gone back to any of my own solo stuff though. I've never gone back and redo it. There is one album I would like to do that with that I did years and many years ago, like early 2000s. That it's out on Apple Music and stuff. It's under the name of Funk Droid. Um, and I'd like to go back and rework some of the tracks on that. Unfortunately, I don't have the sessions anymore. They were on a hard drive that crashed, and it turned out that was the only backup of them. Unless I've got one somewhere else somewhere that I haven't found yet. But I would very much like to go back and rework some of those, but I don't have the sessions anymore. So as I could put them into Ripex and try and send them out again, but it wouldn't be quite the same, I don't think. But that's the only stuff I think I would like to go back and revisit. But I
Do
don't
you
have the option.
do you prefer, like, when you're producing a band, do you prefer doing the dance side more than doing the band stuff?
Not really. I just enjoy doing music.
Hmm.
I just love if we're in the studio working. I love being in studios. I just love being around studios and being in. We did a session. I did a session a few years back in Rack, and it was in 2021, so it was just early 2021, March, April time. So it was still a little bit COVID-y type thing. Was that sort of that unsure time where nobody's sort of sure if we're allowed to poke our heads back out the front door again or not? Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of time. And we did the session, and it was just so lovely. It was in front of this amazing Neve desk, and just having the gear, just all the gear there. And the engineer was fantastic. He knew all the gear, and he was patching things in, and we were recording vocals, and I've patched it through this and this and this and this, and it's coming in this channel here. It was just fantastic. It was great. Um, so I just love being around studios. So if I'm in a studio, I'm just happy to be there. And recording bands is great. I don't know if I'll be any good at miking up kits and stuff anymore because I haven't done that for a very long time. I used to do that a lot when I had my own studio when I had for a while, but that was early 2000s as well. So I haven't done that for a little while. But when we went to Rack, the engineer there did it for us, so it was okay. I didn't have to worry about that, which was fine. So um, yeah, it was. So I kind of I just like doing music. I just love doing music. It's just that's the best part about it. Is it whether I'm just sitting here on my own, twiddling with a new plugin or playing with some new sounds in one of my synths. That's why I like to keep synths around. Is that I can, if I get another reason why, if you get stuck, you just go and walk across to a synth and stand up and just play something on there, and it might trigger something. I've got all of a sudden I'm playing something on the 106 or the JX3P. I should just have to show up the JX3P that's at the top there. I can just go and play those there. That's why they're over top of each other, because I can play them together, and it'll come up with something. And
Well,
you're
I
not
think,
sitting here in front of the place where you always sit. You're standing up over there on the other side of the room, which is pretty cool.
well, and there's nothing like touching, the
Yeah,
thing when you're staring at a computer screen all day, with plugins and stuff, that there's nothing like having a physical
yeah,
touch.
absolutely right. Yeah,
Yeah, I just love that, just because, and they're temperamental as well, synthesizers. One day you can get this sound, the next day you're like, where did that sound go? It's like with synthesizers, I feel like you find a happy mistake, a sound that you're
absolutely.
looking
Yeah,
for. You get a different sound, and you're like, whoa, I like this better than what, I was actually trying to get.
yeah. That's another reason why I've got all these old computers kicking about and these old systems that I used to use. I've got a Commodore 64 down here as well because I use it as a synthesizer.
Hmm.
And I've upgraded it so it has two sound chips in it, so I can get six voices out of it, or eight voices out of it, whichever one it is. But I've just got a little software on there. You just play it on the keyboard, and you just a little key. You press the Commodore 64 keys on it, and just these sounds come out, and it never sounds the same twice. It never does twice, but you can just press this key and hold this key down, and this noise just comes out. This sound. That's like, wow, it's fantastic. So I'll sample that into something else, or I'll put it into Contact on the computer, or I've got a um, 2 or 3 samplers in the rack over there, which I can put them into the samplers and fiddle around with filters on it and stuff, and just just do sound design and stuff. And quite often that will come up. You'll come up with something from doing that as well. But that's right. You can get from actually having a physical thing you turn. You'll never get it in the same place twice. So whether it's on the Moog or on the Pro One there or whatever, it's got because you're physically changing the knob on it. You're very unlikely to ever get it the same twice, which is great.
Well, I definitely do want to ask you about how you met the great William Orbit, because he's a legend in the scene, and he knows his shit, inside and out. How did that come about for you?
So that was we got asked to do a remix when I was working with Chicane. We got asked to do a remix, and Nick was busy doing other stuff, and he said, "Oh, can you deal with this William Orbit remix and just deal with all the contacting, getting all the parts and stuff for it?" So I did, and basically the contacting was, here's William's phone number, here's his email address. Can you so I we just got talking and on the phone and stuff, and we did this remix, and it went pretty well. We did another remix, which I think, I can't remember what happened with that. It got lost. I can't remember what happened, but it never got used anyway. This second mix we did for him. But anyway, when I about a year later, I think it was, I'd done all the stuff with Chicane, and then I just sent him an email and said, just seeing what you're up to, because we always said we might, be good to get in the studio together and do some stuff. And he said, yeah, have you got any stuff that you could send me? So I sent him this one track, or a couple of tracks, and he came back and said, this one track is an absolute monster. What are you doing with this? I said, well, I haven't really got any plans with it at all at the moment. So he said, okay, can you send me the WAV file of it? Because I've got a vocal session happening at the weekend. I'll see if I can put some vocals down for it. Okay, did that, sent him it, and didn't hear anything back from him. And then sent him another little email a couple of weeks later saying, just to see if you got up with anything. Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't get around to doing anything on that track. And I'm just about to go back to LA and do some stuff in LA. So, okay, no problem, cool. He said, but we'll stay in touch. And then we didn't stay in touch. And then it was I think it was 2021, I think it was. His email address just happened to come. I was typing an email to somebody, and I went to put in the address thing, and I pressed something, and up popped his email address. And I was like, oh, William Orbit, I wonder what he's doing. So I just sent him an email, and he came back and said, oh, James, it's interesting you've contacted me right now. He said, I'm actually just working on a new track, and it's using some of the bits of the remix that you did. And so I said, well, I've got the session for that. So if you want all the stems for it, so he said, that would be fantastic. So I turned on my old Mac Pro and printed off all the stems for him and sent them to him. And then I got a call from his manager saying, what am I like in Pro Tools? And I said, yeah, I'm pretty good on Pro Tools, yeah. And would I like to go and do Pro Tools for this session at Rack Studios with him? He was producing this session. So we went and did that, and we just got the first time I've been in the room with him. I had met him once. We did a Chicane gig at the Kentish Town Forum, and I was DJing. I was like the opening DJ, and then William came on and DJ'd after me, and then there was the Chicane on stage afterwards. And so I had met him then very briefly, but the first time we actually worked in the room together was at the Rack, and we just got on really well together. And so afterwards he said, what else have you got going on? You got anything else going on? And I said, well, do you remember that track I sent you? And he said, it was a monster. And he said, oh, I've got to be honest with you. That was a long time ago. probably like 10 years before, no, 10 years ago at that point. He said, send it to me again. So I sent it to him again, and he immediately came back and said, I was right. This is an absolute monster. What are you doing with this track? I said, well, I've never done anything with it. Um, so he said, okay, can you send me the session for it? So I sent him the session, and then we went on holiday for a couple of weeks. And when I came back, I noticed he'd emailed me this track, and I played it, and it was my track, but he'd completely William Orbitized it. And it done things to it. I was like, whoa, what's this? And he put a vocal on top of it and everything. And it became Aguilas on his and Junior EP. That's was the track I sent him that he then William Orbitized.
Oh wow.
Um, and that's so then we just started working together, doing stuff together. And they're working on these live. He's got some live gigs at the end of May, 29th and 30th of May in the at the Notting Hill Arts Club.
Mhm.
We're doing a couple of live gigs. Just basically to test out what he wants to do live, which is what all this kit over here is for. That's my live kit that I've been setting up and working a bit on today before we did this. But um, yeah, that's what we've been doing. I've done lots of stuff with him and recorded, um, working with vocalists with him, and I've done lots of tracks and stuff. He's got this big catalog of tracks. I mean, an enormous catalog of tracks that he's never done anything with, and we've been adding to that and doing that sort of stuff. And he's just been doing a lot of stuff on his website and things, getting ready to do these gigs and put stuff about. So that's the William Orbit story so far.
Yeah, I love just that William orbitized it. I love that. That should be on a t-shirt. I mean, do you pinch yourself? Like, I mean, William Orbit, to me is an absolute legend.
Yeah, I mean, he is an absolute legend, and he's got so many stories. It's unbelievable. He's talked about everything,
Mhm.
And different people, and it is an absolute pleasure to work with him. Um, yeah, I do. You do have to sometimes sit back and think, wow, when you see what he's no when we're doing these rehearsals and you play we're playing some of the tracks. Obviously, he's playing all his hits in there as well. And when you go back and you listen to some of these tracks, you just think, this is how have I got here doing this? This is crazy. Um, so yeah, there is a little bit like that sometimes, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear though, because you're a damn good producer by yourself, and I can't imagine just being next to him and just because you are it's like when you grow up, I think as a kid you want to be a rock star or you want to be a football player. I mean that's most of my mates, that's what we wanted to be, and you've made a living doing what you love, which I think is fantastic. That you get to stand next to a person like William Orbit, and you get to, keep learning, because that's the thing in this business and anything in life, you never stop learning, you
no,
know,
no,
uh,
absolutely never stop.
because I
You
think
don't want to stop learning. That's the
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
You don't want to stop learning because there's always something else that's coming up, and that's why I think it's very important, especially in music, to stay on top of all the technology and things like that, and um, all this talk of AI and all this sort of stuff. There is some amazing AI stuff you can do now in music, and I'm not talking about just asking ChatGPT to write you a song in the style of Katy Perry. What do you know what I mean? I don't want to do that. Not talk about that. I mean, that's pretty amazing as well that it can do that. There's within music production, there's some pretty amazing stuff that's happening
yeah. If
with
if
AI.
AI is used in the right way, I think it can enhance an artist. and I'm not talking about, like you just said, make a Katy Perry track over and over again. You
Yeah.
can use it for, different things to enhance, what you're making. But it's it's just amazes me, how many guests had on, on the show, and they all have, different answers, but at the end of the day, they say the same thing. They love what they do. That's and you can tell in the music that they put out. And same goes for you, mate. I think it's amazing, the stuff you do. And I hope you have another, 20, 30 years still producing. You can be producing in your
But
sleep.
I'll still be here with me BBC Micro in the background there. So still
Yeah.
guitar EST.
Yeah, with your slippers on and everything, that's why, I like all these day raves that are starting to happen. So us older folks can come out and we can be in bed by, 10, 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
all for that, mate.
Yeah.
But it's been an absolute pleasure, James. I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank you for asking me.
spending a bit of time with me. It's always great to talk music and footy. Any day of the week is always good for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish you all the best. Especially, doing the live stuff with William, which,
Yeah.
again, like, is he just planning like a UK tour?
I
Or
don't I don't know what the plan is for the moment. The plan at the moment is to just get these two things. I think we may be in Ibiza this summer.
wow.
Might be in Ibiza this summer. I think we're still waiting to confirm that. I'm not even sure if I should be telling you that, but I think we are. Um, so I'll just watch his socials for that to see if that happens. But yeah, that'll be pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully it'll be at a decent place, because as we all know, Ibiza's kind of gone. You know,
Yeah, I
that
don't. It's not. If it's well, if it comes off, it's not going to be. It's in a pretty decent place.
Mhm.
I'm not going to
Yeah,
say anything more about it in case I'm not supposed to say anything
yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't. That's good.
Just watch his. If you want to find out a bit more about it, just watch his socials on it and probably mine as well. But yeah,
Well, if somebody wants to find your music, you can go to jameshockley.com, right?
yeah, jameshockey.com. Stuff on there. Just search my name on any of the streaming platforms and you'll find it. I've got some sort of Chicago-y housey stuff that I did as well a few years back, which is under the name of Pixel Freak as well, which I did.
Mhm.
Um, and then if you want to go really early back, then there's some of the Funk Droid stuff. Um, but yeah, that's it. And then of course there's the Chicane stuff and yeah, the William Orbit stuff. In I didn't his and Junior EP. I worked on. Oh, well, I did and Aguilas on that, and there's also a track called Starbeam, which has got a remix by some dude called Shockley, which is also me. That's me as well. That was his manager at the time, so I dared to call me that. I wish I'd just done it as my name, but he said no, we should call it Shockley. So anyway, so I've got that as well. That's there. Yeah, and there's gonna be more stuff coming out, more William Orbit stuff coming out, which I'm working on all the time. Um, but yeah, I haven't done anything solo for a while, but yeah, any more stuff. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all the rest of it.
Well,
Instagram is Retro Studio Tech because I have a lot of retro gear and I'd sort of try and do retro studio techniques is what it's supposed to be, but that's my Instagram handle is Retro Studio Tech.
well, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, put your notifications on. I know some people might get sick of me saying this, but put your earbuds on, look for new music, look for new artists. There's plenty out there that don't get the recognition they deserve. Whatever platform you're on, and like I say, if a band or a DJ come into town that you've never heard of, go check them out. They might be your favorite, in a year or two. So yeah, please go do that. As always, please stay safe, take care of one another. We kind of live in a world right now that is just a bit crazy. And every time you turn on the telly, there's something bad happening. But all I can say is, like, just look after one another. And until next time, take care, and we'll see you later.